So here's the deal, right? I think sometimes because we are so accustomed to not having to obey immediately or not having to do things immediately, we don't really understand or we don't think about the impact that it sometimes has on or can have, potentially can have on people. So what makes me think about this is last week in Pretoria when there was suddenly rain and we were all just like, what the hell is going on? I thought, oh, this would be a good time to talk about my bike, right? And now, I mean, the sun is even back and it's all sunny and stuff, and I still haven't even made the video. And I remember when I first thought, oh, let me make the video. I mean, it could have taken me 5 or 10 minutes to do it then. But, then it's the thought of, oh, nobody's going to watch this, or, Katie, people don't really care about you and your stories. That I didn't do it, And this is what I'm saying is like, I don't know if maybe in that moment somebody needed some type of encouragement, and I will never know, maybe, but as the days kind of passed and as the sun came out, then eventually I got to a point where I was like, oh, I don't have to do this video. It doesn't matter now anyway. It doesn't make sense. Or on the other hand, I'm just like, oh, let me wait for another day when there's just suddenly rain. And if you still don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to explain it now. But that was really, like, I think that's really where, that's the start of this video for me, because, it's easy. I think it's easy to obey, or to obey quickly when, when the impact is significant, or when the impact is visible. And I wonder how much I've been cheated out of and how much I've cheated people because I either have chosen not to obey or have chosen to delay my obedience, which in the church they will tell you is still disobedience. So that's kind of how this video starts for me. But if you are confused up to now, so what this video is actually supposed to be about, right? What I actually wanted to tell you guys is one of the questions that I get asked a lot, right? Or one of the comments that get made to me a lot is, Katie, you should just get a car. Now, I understand that this question comes because I think, first of all, people think I'm flush. So thank you. Amen. I received that prophecy. We will get into that. But I think people think I'm flush. And secondly, well, not secondly, but I think the other side of that is I think some people also just think that I want to be different. Which, I mean, of course I want to be different, but I didn't get a bike because I want to be different, Anyway, so for those of you that don't know, I do not have a car. I have a motorbike. I bought it in 2012. I think I bought it in 2012. I had a car before that, and then it was in an accident, or I was in an accident, and then I was just like, look, it doesn't make sense for me to get a car because, first of all, it's financing. Second of all, I'm not in the country enough for me to kind of get the car. So what would I be doing? I want to tie myself to a debt of 3,500 rand per month for a car I'm not even going to be using, right? And I think this is the thing, is that when the world looks and sees, it's like, but I don't understand. Why don't you have a car? It can be so inconvenient to have a bike. I'm very much a people person. So if I'm going somewhere, I love giving people rides, who needs, I will drive 10 kilometers in the one direction, even though we're going in the other direction, just so that somebody can experience a moment, because, quality time. Or experience something with me. So and I genuinely am that person, and I still want to be that person, just that obviously the bike is limiting because either a friend won't get on it, or or I'm not gonna drive 10 kilometers in the opposite direction anymore because now I'm on a bike. I mean, sometimes I leave the house and I'm going to a meeting, and halfway through the rain meets me, so by the time I get to my meeting, I'm soaking wet. It just, oh, guys, it can be very inconvenient to have a motorbike and to not have a car, right? But when I need it, when I do need a car, then there's obviously Uber, which has made life a lot easier. And there are people, in my life, my friends will tell you, even strangers, sometimes I'm just like, hey, listen. So let me tell you a story. When I was in first year, a really good friend of mine was getting married, right? And I had a plan to get there and all that stuff, whatever, but the plan fell through like last minute. And I remember I went downstairs and I was like, Tristan, I really need to borrow your car. And he was just like, we've just met. And I was like, well, I really need to borrow your car because one of my best friends is getting married and I can't not be at this wedding. And he was just like, anyway, he lent me his car. So thank you very much, Tristan. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, when I am in a place or when I do find myself in a position where I need a car, then I'll get a car. But, or I'll rent a car, or I'll borrow a car, or I'll Uber. But the reality of the situation is that I cannot afford a car. And because I cannot afford a car and I want to live within my means, it means I'm not going to get a car. And that is very upsetting for the perception. I need to say this right. It is very upsetting for the perception that people have of me. But, realistically speaking, if for the past few years, every month I had an extra 3,500 rand that I had to find so that I could pay for a car that I would hardly use, my life would have been hard, guys. There's been months even here where I'm just like, Mom, you're not getting anything from me this month. It's dry, So, I think that we owe it to ourselves, first of all, to make decisions, or to give ourselves permission to make decisions around our own lives. And second of all, I don't owe anybody an explanation. Obviously I'm talking about it now, right? Because I'm just talking about I'm going to go through some of the things that I go through. But even that flash one, and it's so weird because the way people will ask me, they'll be like, Katie, can I ask you a personal question? How do you afford to travel so much? Or, how rich are you? Or, things like that. And it always comes, it kind of in the same avenue. And I do, I appreciate people that ask me, because if you ask me, I'll tell you. But it's you can see on their face that after they find out, then it's just it's like this, the glass shatters. And it's like, okay, well, so that perception of her, for me, or the perception that I made, isn't real, or it's not true, or it doesn't stand, it doesn't hold water. And then we're able to engage I guess I say on a normal basis. So that happens to me a lot, and it really is one of those things where I have constantly had to, that's one of the biggest, or it's one of the toughest conversations I've had to have with myself, right? Because it's, I remember just before I turned 25, I wanted to buy a house, and I had, that was part of when I listened to that teaching by Andy Stanley, where he discusses Jeremiah 17:9, where he says, above the heart is desperately wicked, above all else, who can understand it, who can know it? And Andy Stanley was really saying, be honest with yourself, because you are the best person to lie to yourself. And it's one of the hardest conversations that I, even now, I continue to have with myself, because I'm like, dude, you're 30, it should make sense that you have a house. It should make sense that you have a car. Why are these things not here? People look at your life and they're going to think, oh, this girl, she's lacking, She's lacking. And the truth is, yes, I am lacking, but I am lacking according to your standards. I am lacking according to your timeline for where my life should be. So if I look at my financial situation and I can see that I can't afford a car, I'm not going to go out and buy a car just so that I can please whatever that perception, or settle whatever that perception that you might have of me was. So, that is, guys, on the other side of it, then I also look at the relationships and the perceptions I have of other people, right? And I'm like, okay, well, where does this perception come from? Why do I have this perception? Is the person open to talk to me about it so that we can see, just so that I can treat people for who they are, you know, not for who I need them to be or want them to be. Shop.